Ron Howard was always known as America's favorite director, but his journey wasn't as perfect as it seemed. He faced some really dark moments that he kept hidden for 50 years. Now he's finally opening up about everything. The scary accidents on his movie sets, the expensive lawsuits, and the family problems that almost ended his marriage. Ron Howard was born on March 1, 1954, in a small town called Duncan, Oklahoma. His dad, Rance, wanted to be an actor and writer. His mom, Jean, was also trying to make it as an actress. They didn't have much money and things were really hard for them. When Ron was just 4 years old in 1958, they packed up everything and moved to Hollywood. They were taking a big chance, hoping to get better acting jobs. It was risky because they had no guarantees of success. They ended up living in a tiny house in Burbank, barely able to pay their bills while raising their little red-haired boy. The interesting part was they lived really close to a big movie studio, so young Ron grew up seeing actors, cameras, and movie sets almost every single day. He didn't go to a regular preschool like other kids. Instead, he learned things on movie sets, watching everything around him and slowly becoming part of that world, even though nobody had planned it that way. That big move to California didn't just change where they lived, it quietly changed their entire future. On January 1, 1956, when Ron was only 18 months old, he appeared in a movie called Frontier Woman. It wasn't something his parents planned. His father needed a baby for one quick scene and just decided to use Ron. That tiny moment of a baby crawling across a set was actually the start of something really huge. His parents were still struggling with money, especially because his dad had just left the Air Force. By July 15, 1956, Ron was even acting in live theater plays. But even as he got more roles, his parents didn't want him treated like those other child stars. They refused to sign any long contracts until he turned 5 years old. That decision almost destroyed them financially. In 1957, they were so broke that Rance thought about giving up on acting completely and moving back to Oklahoma to become a farmer. But they decided to stay, barely hanging on, believing they were doing what was best for their son. Starting in 1954, Ron's parents made one thing very clear: no full-time acting until he was at least 5 years old. That meant saying no to big job offers in 1957 and 1958. Even when they couldn't afford to pay rent, they had to sell their stuff at pawn shops just to survive. By the end of 1958, they were seriously thinking about leaving Hollywood for good, but they didn't go through with it. In 1959, Ron turned 5 and things slowly started getting better. That year he got cast in a movie called The Journey, and for the first time ever, his name showed up in the movie credits. But not everything was happy. On the movie set, other workers made fun of his red hair and freckles. They called him mean names like freckle-faced freak. It really broke his heart. His dad, who was also working on that set, got into an argument with one of the crew members and almost got fired from his job. The job only paid $12,500, but it meant absolutely everything to their family. That same year, his younger brother Clint was born on April 20th. Money was still super tight. Their debt was worth about $5,000 in today's money, but his parents stayed firm about protecting Ron. They kept him in regular public school. They let him be a normal kid as much as possible, even as the pressure kept growing. Then, in 1960, something really huge happened. Ron got the role of Opie Taylor in The Andy Griffith Show. He was only 6 years old. The process of getting picked was long and really hard. More than 300 kids tried out for the role, but Ron's natural charm really stood out. The show started airing on October 3, 1960, and it became a massive hit. It ran for 249 episodes total, and Ron was in 243 of them. At the beginning, he got paid $300 for each episode. By the time the show ended in 1968, he was making $1,000 per episode. But with all that success came a whole lot of pressure. He was still just a little kid, but he had to memorize all his lines, show up on time, and perform perfectly. There was no live audience watching, so every joke and scene had to be delivered with perfect timing. It wasn't easy at all, but he learned really fast. The show felt like it was showing a simpler, happier time, and Ron's character made people feel safe and comfortable. That's exactly why viewers loved him so much. But behind the scenes, he was growing up way too fast. Ron and Andy Griffith, the main star of the show, became really close. Andy was way more than just someone he worked with. He was like a mentor and teacher. He would explain scenes to Ron and tell him stories between filming. Their friendship started when Ron was just 6, and it got stronger as time went on. But things weren't always peaceful and calm. Andy had problems with drinking alcohol, and sometimes Ron would see him get into angry arguments on set. It was really scary for a kid. In one situation, Andy read a bad review about himself out loud and got really upset in front of everyone. Despite all of this, he was still kind to Ron, helping him with emotional scenes and treating him with respect. Years later, in 1997, Andy even came to visit Ron on a movie set in Queens. They didn't find out until after Andy died in 2012 that they were actually distant cousins by blood. It was a shocking and really sweet discovery that made their long friendship feel even more special. In 1962, during a scene on a lake, 8-year-old Ron almost drowned and died. They were filming a fishing scene on a small boat when something went terribly wrong. The boat tipped over and Ron fell into the water. Andy Griffith saw what happened and jumped into the water without thinking twice. He pulled Ron out and saved his life. The producers didn't want anyone to know about it because it could hurt the show's reputation, so they kept it quiet. But Ron never forgot what happened. There were no safety rules for child actors back then. Kids could work really long hours, and accidents weren't that uncommon. That near-drowning incident left a permanent mark on Ron, and years later, when he started directing his own films, he made absolutely sure every set had proper safety plans in place. By 1968, when the Andy Griffith Show ended, Ron was 14 years old. But instead of getting more acting roles, he kept getting rejected. Over 50 auditions in 1968 and 1969 went nowhere at all. Everyone still only saw him as little Opie from the show. He felt completely trapped. He told his parents he wanted to quit acting completely. He took small roles like Gentle Ben in 1969 for just $500 per episode, way less than what he used to make. In 1970, he lost the lead role in The Wild Country. Things just kept getting worse and worse. He joined a show called The Smith Family in 1971, earning $8,000 total for 39 episodes. But the show was a complete flop. All this rejection gave him serious anxiety, which he tried to hide from other people. At the same time, he was playing basketball in high school, averaging 12 points per game. In 1972, he tried to live a normal teenage life, but inside he felt completely stuck. In 1973, things changed again. Ron was 19 years old and got cast in a movie called American Graffiti. It was directed by George Lucas. Filming started in June in California. On the outside it looked really exciting, but behind the scenes, things were actually pretty rough. His co-stars Harrison Ford and Paul Le Mat bullied him badly. On July 15th, they threw beer bottles near his car and yelled at him to dance. Opie, dance. They locked him inside a trailer on July 20th, which made him miss important rehearsals. They even spiked his drinks with alcohol. All of this happened because he had been a child star, and they didn't respect that background. Ron stayed quiet and didn't fight back. He later called it his only real moment of Opie shaming. Despite everything bad that happened, he made it through filming and earned $10,000. Years later, Harrison Ford actually apologized for his behavior, but the emotional pain stuck with Ron for a long time. Back in 1970, Ron had met a girl named Cheryl Alley in high school. Their first date was on November 1st, and by December, a nasty rumor started spreading that Cheryl was pregnant. They were only 16 years old. The gossip exploded everywhere. In January 1971, Ron denied the rumor in the school newspaper. In February, tabloid magazines picked up the story. He lost a TV guest role worth $2,000 because of the rumors. Cheryl was absolutely devastated, but they stayed together through it all. Ron asked her to marry him 3 different times. She finally said yes in October 1974. They got married on June 7, 1975. They've now been together for 50 years. Ron often says she's his good luck charm. Money was still a big problem after the Andy Griffith Show ended. In January 1971, Ron started delivering newspapers to make money. He made $150 a month and had to deliver 200 papers before school started each day. He needed the money to take Cheryl out on dates. But on April 5, 1971, he got rear-ended by a truck while driving to an audition. He got whiplash and had to delay his next acting role. The medical bills cost $3,000. He didn't have any insurance to cover it. He even had to sell his bike for $200. The pain from that accident stayed with him for years and affected how he could move during later movie scenes. Even after American Graffiti became a huge hit in 1973, Ron didn't make the money he deserved. The film made $115 million in the US on a tiny budget of only $777,000, but Ron only got a flat payment of $10,000 with no share of the profits. He asked George Lucas for just 1%, which would have been worth over $1 million. Lucas said no and refused.